All right, we are back for another coffee call. I believe it is episode number 36, and I'm excited about this topic. Like every week, I'm excited about it, but this one, it kind of sticks out a little bit because it's a question that I feel like comes up in a lot of conversations, no matter where you're at talking about hunting, and that is about pressure on your farm. So I'm really excited to dive into this one. What do you think, man?
Yeah, this is a really good one because it applies to anybody, property big or small, public or private, leased or maybe it's just your neighbors, giving you access. But this is probably one of the most influential factors, like in my opinion, that you need to take into consideration, when it comes to maximizing your opportunity as a deer hunter.
I agree. And this question, when it was submitted to us, it was kind of a vague question. It was just like, I want to hear more about pressure on your farm. So I thought that we could just start by first, let's define what pressure is for people out there that, could be new to this or, you know, hunters in general that, just might not think of pressure that much and they just go out and hunt. So let's break down what pressure is. My definition of pressure is basically any time that you go on your farm doing anything, whether it's going to your stand, whether it's going to check a camera, or, whatever it is, going to scout or anything, that is pressure on your farm. That is something that's manipulating deer movement and disturbing them in their natural habitat. So
Yeah,
that's kind of my take on pressure.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, I would call it like the effects you have on your property based on your activity. In regards to deer movement and the deer's perception of your presence. Like you said, whether it's going to your tree stand, putting in a food plot, shed hunting, like all that stuff, anything really, any type of intrusion, no matter if you're hunting or not, is going to affect the way deer perceive that pressure. Like that, I don't know what else to call it. Like, yeah, it's a good topic, and like you said, it's something that is brought up a lot, and it's brought up in every aspect of deer hunting, no matter where you live in the country. Like, so it's a great topic to dive into. I think it affects everybody.
It does. It really does. I mean, every hunter out there deals with some sort of pressure. If you sit there and say, "Well, I don't have a lot of pressure on my farm," well, I get that, but there is a little bit of pressure with you going on there no matter what time or when you do
Yeah,
it. That still equals as pressure. At the capacity, or the amount of pressure, that might vary from your farm to my farm, but there still is a little bit of pressure. So I've got a couple different scenarios that I want to break down, and I'm going to start with it here in Michigan. So I've got the 1 acre farm, which is, 120 acres, but only 4 acres of it is timber. And then I've got my family farm that's 15 minutes away, that's 215 acres, and it's all timber. So on the 1 acre, I treat it the same as I do my family farm, but I'm a little more disciplined and a little more calculated on what I do. So on the 1 acre, it's all ag around me, all farm fields and ag. So there's a lot of tractors, a lot of, trucks and people around a lot. So these deer kind of are used to it. So when I go in and hang my stands, it does not matter when I do it. If I could go hang a stand tomorrow in January, what I do is I take the Ranger in. Every time I go on the farm, I'll take the Ranger in. I will leave the Ranger running while I hang a stand. And that's just what I do because
yeah,
I've always witnessed once you drive up somewhere and you turn that Ranger off and a human gets out, or if it's a tractor or a truck and you get out, or even if you just stop, if you see a deer bedded and you stop, a lot of times that deer will like get up and freak out and leave. A lot
yeah,
of times. Sometimes they'll sit there, but a lot of times in my scenario, they will stand up and they'll just freak out and get out of there. So I like to keep it running and do all my stuff. I mean, it could be running for an hour or 2 hours. I don't care. That's the risk that I take. And
yeah,
just that noise, it kind of, I think it keeps the deer at ease that might be, you know, a little distance away but could still see me possibly, or they might just think, that there's a farmer in the field just doing his thing, and they don't look at that as danger. So that's one thing I like to do. But on my family farm, I still do the same thing, but I still do, like, if I take my pickup in or something, a lot of tree stands, I can get my pickup pretty close, or a four wheeler. I'll still do the same thing. I'll let it run. But also, I all my stands are hung by, July 4th. That's what I like to get them all hung by and get everything done, and then I'm out of the woods at the latest August 1st, and I'm done. So that's kind of where it starts for me. Where's it really start for you at?
Man, I don't know. I've never really had the luxury of having private property to hunt. Like even growing up in New York, I did hunt private property, but I mean, I was, like I said before, we couldn't hunt deer till we're 16 in New York. So I couldn't even start to learn how to deer hunt until I was 16. Short of watching videos or reading a book or an article or something, I never really had any hands-on experience. So factor in the time frame of being 16, getting out of high school, going to college, and then I left college and went straight to Texas for 5 years. So it's like my experience has been still in hunting and whitetails, but until this year, like moving to Iowa, I never really had a place of my own to focus stuff on, when it comes to this kind of a thing. But, I will say there are certain elements that make sense to me, that, certain things you can do to decrease the pressure on a piece of property, in regards to like checking cameras or hanging stands and all that. And based on that experience, I would answer your question by saying, and this is total opposite of you. And I'm not saying this for the sake of argument, but I'm not sure I would want to hang permanent stands. I'd want to leave all that stuff completely out of the equation and then just pack in a stand and do a hanging hunt every time I go.
Yeah, and I can definitely see how that would be an effective tactic too, because I've really thought about that, on my farm. And the reason why I'm pretty anal about certain things. What I mean by that is I go down to the minute details, like of deer seeing my ladder sticks. So when I go up and hang a stand, I make sure, I have a pretty good idea where a majority of the deer movement's going to be on what side of the tree. So I situate my ladder sticks a certain way on the tree.
Yeah.
I'm just anal about that, I guess. And I like to get my ladder sticks out there early. Like I'll go if I have an idea, let's say like right now, I've got an idea on a couple trees that I want for next year that I'm going to put pre-hung stands in. I will go put those ladder sticks out there in January, because then the deer will have, basically 9-10 months to look at those and just be like, oh, that's just an extension of that tree, or that's just nothing different, Yep. So those ladder sticks also, them being out there, even with trail cams, that's pressure in a way to me, until they get used to that. And there's ways to hang trail cams to make them not as visible. And I know guys that actually will go as far as like zip tying limbs around their trail cam so it kind of breaks it up a little bit. I don't go that far, but I get my cameras out there earlier enough that I haven't really had a lot of deer freak out about them. I do have a trail cam on the 1 acre that it's in an area that I could go check it every day and I would not do any harm to the farm. And that camera is strictly for inventory. It's in a spot where I can get to it quick, quiet, and nothing will see me or hear me.
Yep.
But all the other cameras, I use my cameras for inventory, but also like to see how deer are moving for the next year. So this year I had that camera in the 1 acre. I wanted to see how all the deer are moving for next year. And what I've taken from it this year is a lot of bucks are bedding in there, and a lot of bucks are up on their feet in midday in there in the rut. So that tells me I need to get in there in the rut on the right conditions and hunt them midday. I know it's kind of off topic a little bit, but it kind of all comes together and is in kind of the same group, I guess you could say, of the pressure.
Yeah, they're all contributing factors for sure. I mean, you're talking about people that zip tie brush or tree limbs around their cameras. I can remember, watching some of the old Drury videos, and they would actually cut silhouettes out of plywood of a human outline to put in their box blinds, like, or in a ground blind, or they'd screw it up to a tree in their tree stand just so the deer associated that form, to something that's there constantly, like, over time. So, when the day comes for you to go hunt that spot, you pull the silhouette out and you sit up there, and the deer, it sounds kind of, obsessive and a little crazy now, but I mean, 10, 15 years ago, before you had all this blacked out windows on your blinds, I mean, it all seems common sense at this point, but
Right.
I mean, I remember seeing that stuff on their old VHS tapes, and it's like, man, that's cool. Like, that makes a lot of sense, like, make the deer think you're there the whole time. So then
Yep.
when you do go in, they're not going to think twice about it. They're not going to know the difference. But
Yep,
as
exactly.
far as cameras go, like you're saying, like, you put the ones you put certain cameras in strategic places that are easy to get to, so you don't have that intrusion factor that still gets you the information you're looking for, as far as inventory or travel route or bedding area or whatever the case may be. But with the advancements in cameras now, like cell cameras or the Cuddy Link system that Cuddy Back came out with last year, or in 2018, I should say. If you want to spend enough money, you don't have to go in and check your cameras at all. Put them on a 6-volt battery with a solar charger and put them on a cell phone network, and you never have to go in there. Or those Cuddy Link cameras, you can link, I think, like up to 9 cameras. You set one home camera and then just daisy chain the rest, out after that, beyond that, based on signal strength. And all you got to do is go to the first one and check it, and you've got all the images from the other 8 that are out there.
Yep. We use the Cuddy Link system on my family farm here, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
We put the base camera or the home camera at deer camp, and
Yep.
anybody who wants to check the whole farm can go up there and pull that card, put it in the computer, and they'll folder it out. It is nice, but it is pricey too.
Yeah,
You
it
know.
sure is. I mean, that's like anything else, convenience costs. That's all there is to it, and it's not just the hunting industry, but I mean, it's just one of the things we have now that is changing the game. But I mean, if you want to talk about pressure and how to keep it off your farm and out of your property, then if that's something you value, then you're going to pay for it. I mean,
Right.
it's easy to justify products like that when it affects you in a positive way.
Exactly. And a big thing that I learned this year and a step that I took farther as a hunter was my discipline and
Yeah.
not going on the farm, and it paid off big time this year on the 1 acre. I mean, I had 4 bucks that were 3.5, years old and older that were showing themselves in the daylight religiously. I had like 5 sits in a row that I was seeing a shooter buck, 3.5 or older in the daylight.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of time. And the biggest thing that I changed this year is I just didn't go on the damn farm. I let my cameras do what they're supposed to do. And it was tough, don't get me wrong, because I was the guy that needed to go in there and check those cameras all the time. It paid off this year, and it was like a light bulb moment. Like, dude, stay your ass off there, and things will happen. Going in there in the right time. And it went as far as, so, a lot of my close friends and everybody that knows me that, close hunting buddies, I'm obsessive over the puff bottles. And, a lot of people use the milkweed. Well, I use, I can't remember what it's called. It's like a little green plastic tube, and it's got like almost like cotton in it. I don't know what it really is, but it's like milkweed basically. I have a puff bottle and that cotton thing with me all the time. It doesn't matter if it's summer and I'm going to check cameras in like a bedding area or something, or on the edge, something where I'm like pushing the fact. I'm constantly walking in. If I could get halfway in it and I puff or throw some, I'll just call it milkweed, throw some milkweed out there and the wind switches and goes in where I'm going, I will not go in there. And it happened to me this year. It was the youth hunt, and it was mid-September, or not mid-September, it was early September, so the youth hunt was coming up, I think. Or no, maybe it was last year. Anyway, the youth hunt was going on, and there was youth hunters all around my farm. I knew they were hunting. Well, I wanted to go check my cameras, and I literally got out of the truck, got scent free and everything, my boots and all my clothes and everything. I started walking and I checked the wind and it switched on me and went right into where I was going. And I said, nope. And I backed out and I did not go in. That is another thing to look at when you're going in to check a camera or even put a stand up. I'm not talking like heart of the summer, but like when you get close to season or even if you do it in season, make sure you know where that wind's at. Play that wind when you're going in there to do that stuff because you could be a couple hundred yards away from the timber or where you want to get, and that wind could be blowing right down where you want to go, and there could be deer in there and you just don't even know, and you wouldn't even know if you blow them out of there. And a mature buck or any buck for that matter, but a mature buck especially, his tolerance might be one time. Once you blow him, you'll never see him again. He might be 3 counties away, and you just screwed yourself, and you didn't even know it. Now you're hunting a ghost that's not even there.
Yeah, it happens more often than people think, and unfortunately, it happens sometimes when they don't even know the deer's there in the first place.
Right.
Your neighbor might hear about some giant, like 180 or something, and you're like, man, why am I not seeing him? Well, what are you doing? Like, look at the bigger picture, and you could have blown him out of there before you ever even had a photo or ever had an encounter with him.
Yep. Man, I've blown so many deer out of an area and you not even know it, and then sometimes you do know it. When I was back in my younger time, when I was probably 15, 16 years old and just dumb to the fact, I would go out and sit in my rifle blind and watch deer in September and want to see bucks. And I remember going in one night, I went in and I kicked up a big buck right behind my blind. And it's like September. I'm in shorts, in a t-shirt. And I just wanted to go see deer, look at deer. And I remember he had double split brow tines. And I kicked him up. Nobody ever saw him again until my uncle, he showed back up on the farm. My uncle shot him in rifle season. He was a double split brow 10, ended up scoring right around the 130s right there. And yep. I'm like, that was like a light bulb moment. And I'm like, I never, ever, one time after that, I'm like, I screwed that whole deal up right there, and it goes in progression. And my the best way I learn is to screw up bad, and then it tells you, you'll never do that again.
Yeah, that could not be more true. And I don't remember what episode I said it on. It was with Chuck there in whatever number episode, but I said, if you did everything right the first time, in all aspects of your life, like, what would you really be learning? Like, you literally already know everything. Like, I don't care who you are, what your world is. Like, the only way you learn is by doing something wrong and making an adjustment. Like, that's all there is to it. That could not be more true in anything more than it is in deer hunting, I think, or hunting in general. Like, you're not born with the knowledge of how to kill a mature whitetail or how to kill a mature moose or an elk or, down to a cottontail rabbit or a pheasant. You have to go out there and figure it out. Like, you're going to do it wrong 9 times before you get it right that one time.
Yep.
And it's that culmination of experience that allows you to hone in on what to do right the next time without having to go through all that. And every animal's different, so you're still going to have those things that change. Your conditions are going to be different. It's a different property. The animal may be more, educated on pressure or the experiences it has had in avoiding hunters. Like, you never know what you're dealing with. And if you didn't screw up more often than you've succeeded, then I don't think it would be as fun as it is for anybody.
I agree, man. I agree 100%. When we got this question, I started to think about the deer, the bigger deer that I've killed, the more, I don't want it to be a size thing, but, when you grow up and you go through the stages of probably killing those smaller bucks, and then you work your way up a lot of times, So I've been fortunate enough to put some pretty good bucks on the wall over the last couple years. And I really went back and thought about it. Every deer. So I've killed 3 of them in Michigan. that were pretty good deer, and all of them were the first time in to that set. First time ever sitting in that stand.
Not surprising.
And I killed 2 in Missouri, and both of those, one was a hang and bang, first time in, never been in the area. The other one was a set stand that was on the edge of bedding. It was my first time in ever to set that stand.
That says all you need to know right there. I mean,
Yep.
You're going in on the least amount of pressure where the deer have never encountered danger before. And,
Yep.
This is a little off topic, but it reminds me, I talked to Jared Mills yesterday, and he, in my opinion, he's somebody I followed before I worked for Midwest Whitetail, but I mean, he is like the king of the hang and bang. Like, that guy seldom, 99.9% of the time, is carrying sticks and stands in no matter where he's going to hunt, even on his own private property. And, with that being said, he's going to come on the fall podcast with us here in the very near future and talk about exactly that.
Yeah. That's something I want to get more into doing. And I'm glad he's coming on. And, we're going to have Greg Godfrey from Tethered come on here too soon to talk more about saddle hunting, because I really want to get back into the saddle hunting. Because if I can go in with a saddle on, a saddle, and I don't have to go in and necessarily prep trees in the summer, if I don't have to go hang stands, that's no pressure on my farm.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to eliminate more pressure.
Yeah, and it's a good lightweight option. I mean, even if you're not hunting private property, the weight of that saddle versus the weight of, I don't care what stand you want to talk about, it's going to be significantly less.
Yeah, and I guess I don't want to get too far and say, I'll never not, do another pre-hung stand, or I won't go in and do a hang and bang, but, it is something that I've been wanting to work towards and really fine-tune it and see how well it works for me. And that's why I want to pick these guys' brains, such as Jared and Greg, and really dive deeper into it and really be more disciplined and kind of take my skill set hopefully to another level.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just one of those things where it's like you look at the bigger picture and you say, okay, I'm not pressuring my property. I'm not going to continue to put the same scent into the same stand every time I hunt, because most of the time you're going to access that stand from the same location on the same path every time you go. And if you pay attention to the wind and all that, that's great. You should be. But the fact remains, every deer you encounter from that stand, if you don't kill it, like if it blows you out of there, whether it's a doe or a fawn or a young buck, mature buck, they're going to know that something happened there. Like, they're going to remember this is where I got scared that one time, and they're going to change their ways. So, and that brings up another point is access. There's so many things you can do to access a stand location, even if you are, hunting a permanent stand location, and I think when you go in to hang those stands, you can't just put it where the deer are going to be. You need to look at the terrain and figure out how you can get to where they're going. Like either, the travel route to the destination or the travel route, back to bedding or whatever it is, like after the destination. And, creeks, ditches, ridges, water, anything that just takes you off the radar and just leaves us as small a footprint as possible. If I was to hang permanent stands, that would be first and foremost on my list. It kind of goes back to the beginning of this episode where you asked me where I would start. I think in hindsight now, at the end of the conversation, that would be my answer. I would find the least impactful way to access that property and figure out where those access points can put me, and then find a way to hunt deer along those access routes. Don't look so much for the deer trails, the sheds, the food source. Look at a way to use the landscape to put you between the food source and the deer.
Yeah, that's a great answer. That's a great tactic to go off of too. Because a lot of people, they'll look for that perfect tree, and then they'll try to find access to get in there, and then be like, I need to be in this tree, I'll just have to make this access work. And you might be blowing deer, and you might not, getting in there. But
Yeah.
it's hard to say.
It's a risk versus reward thing. And the hard part about hunting whitetails is when you play it safe, you don't really know what the reward is going to be until it presents itself. Like, that you shouldn't just go blazing through a cornfield or a bean field, to get to your favorite stand on the edge of this ag. But, you're like, I'm just going to get in there quick and I'll be up 30 feet. I'll be out of the wind. I'll be fine. Well, you're not. You just took the straightest line, to your stand. And there's too many animals that expect that, because I really believe that deer know how lazy a human can be. They rely on the fact that they're going to take the easiest way in and out, and you look at the guys that are the most successful in shooting the most mature deer, they're going against the grain. It's not even against the grain. That's a bad way to put it. They're doing the things that everybody else is not thinking about doing. They're looking at the property, they're hunting the landscape, they're staying out of there. They're just, that intrusion is very minimal. It's like, once you learn the results you can have by doing that, like you start to you put your thought process ahead of the deer's, and then you start realizing, man, I'm seeing more mature bucks. I'm having better encounters. Like, you may not be seeing as many deer, but the ones you're seeing are the ones you're targeting. So, I mean, in my opinion, that's as successful as you could probably ask to be. If you're
Right.
If you're not seeing the deer that you're targeting, I mean, are you really justifying all that effort? I mean,
Exactly.
maybe you are. I mean, maybe you're going to settle for saying, man, I had a great set. I saw 14 bucks tonight, but I didn't see the one that I'm after. But I keep getting him on this one camera. Okay, well, why is he on that camera and not where these other 14 bucks are every night? Well, it's because he knows what you're doing and he knows how you're getting there.
Yeah, and I ran into it down in Ohio in muzzleloader season just a couple weeks ago. I was seeing 30 deer a night, but I wasn't seeing the right deer. I had to sit back and ask myself, I'm not seeing the right deer. I'd rather see the right deer and only see one deer than see 30 deer and not see the deer. But a lot of people like to go out and see deer. I do too. I love to just go out and watch wildlife and watch whitetails, but I'm out there for a certain deer. And whether that be age class or a deer that I'm targeting, it doesn't matter, but I'm out there to see that deer. And so I really had to rethink my strategy for the last day that I was there. And I did move. I told myself I was going to ride the hole, and I ended up moving. And I had some weather roll in, and it was like 30-mile gusters, and it just, not a lot of deer were moving anyway. But, that's just another one of those scenarios. You kind of got to, I get like tunnel vision a lot when you're in hunt mode. And, it seems like the days when you're hunting every morning and every night, it seems like they go by so fast and you're so stressed and you're always rushed. You always feel rushed. And it's like, you kind of got to take a step back every once in a while and just say, hey, think about the situation and what you're trying to do. So
it's so hard too, like, as a hunter, to accept that, like, the only choice you have is to trust the process. And if you just do what is either easy to you or what everybody else does, you feel like you're doing things right because, well, this is what everybody else is doing. And, that's sometimes that can be good, but I think more often than not, it's probably bad, because you're going to see those younger deer and those older deer, those mature bucks that you're actually looking for, are going to be clear on the other side of the farm, or else they're going to be slipping by you right under your nose, 40 yards away in the ditch that you should have came in on. And it's just, like I said, you don't understand the reward until you take the risk. And you have to trust the process in knowing that you're doing something different than everybody else is doing, or, maybe what you've already been doing in the past, going to Grandpa's favorite stand is all good and great, from a nostalgic standpoint, but, did Grandpa shoot consistently mature deer out of that stand, or did he just like to go there because, with a northwest wind, you could smell what was for supper before the sun went down. Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. You just have to do what's different and trust that you're doing the right thing.
Yep. I guess my closing thoughts on this as we wrap it up here, just because we're right at time, my closing thoughts on it would be, and it was a really light bulb moment, like I said, for me this year on the 1 acre farm. And I stayed the hell out of there. The 2 years before that I hunted it, I didn't. I went in there and I didn't see any shooters in 2 years. I really, on the hoof. As deer season came along, I pushed all the deer out of there. So this year I was like, I took a step back and I said, I need to do this, and I disciplined myself. And I saw multiple shooters in daylight, and it worked. It's starting to work. And my closing thoughts on it, I guess, reiterating, is that be a little more disciplined with yourself. It's, look at your farm or the farms that you hunt. It could even be public land as well, and it might be a little trickier, but, look at the farms that you hunt and maybe do something a little different. Maybe if you're not seeing the bucks that you want to see, then take a step back and say, is it the pressure that I'm putting on the farm? How much am I putting on there? Am I checking my cameras all the time in the summer? Should I just let them marinate, sit back? Or am I going in there not even thinking about the wind when I'm going to hang stands or checking cameras? So I would think of those small things, the minute details. Start to get a little granular with your thoughts and your movements, and really break down what you're doing with your farm, and I guarantee you will see results. You will see, things will start turning around for you. I do guarantee you it will happen.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. Like you just said, it could be on public land. It's going to be a little trickier, and, that's been my experience this season. But, do something that, even if you're not on public ground, if you're hunting your own private farm or you're hunting the family farm, or, maybe you get permission from a neighbor, like, ask them how they get to this field, or, think about the way you've always done things in the past. It's like, man, it's not working. Well, try doing something different for once. Like, go to your stand from a different direction, or maybe don't even go to that stand. Go someplace and hunt off the ground. Like, just totally throw a curveball into that mix and see what happens. Like, just because that's the way you've been doing it, or that's the way someone told you to do it, doesn't mean it's necessarily right. And it just goes back to, like we talked about, the only way to realize you're doing it wrong is to find a better way to do it. And once you find a better way to do it, you're going to say to yourself, man, why didn't I think of this sooner?
Yep. Or you get it wrong one time too.
Yeah, and from there you're a better hunter from that point forward. So I don't know what else to say. Just
I agree.
If it's not working, find another way to do it.
I agree, man. Yeah, that's a good way to close her out. And everybody, thank you for, I say it every week, but thank you for the support, with the podcast and Justin and I and everything. Hopefully you guys are enjoying all this information, the coffee calls and the main show. If you guys could please go over to iTunes. If you guys listen to the podcast on iTunes, so all you got to do is go to where you download the podcast. And if you scroll down, I think it is a little bit down there, it'll leave a comment section, and you can leave a rating right there. It's like a star. You just click how many stars you want to leave. I'd really appreciate if you guys would go in there and leave a comment, whether it's bad, good, indifferent. I don't care. I want the support. We both want the support. I want the feedback. We both really want the feedback, because that kind of, it tells us what we need to do differently, or if we're doing everything that we should be doing. So we want to hear some more feedback. Yeah, and it just helps us go and helps the podcast grow, and that's what we want to do with this. So if you guys could please do that, that would be helpful in a big way. So, that's all I got, man.
Yeah, that's all I got. I'm looking forward to the next couple conversations we have outside of the coffee call, like talking about the saddles and getting Jared in here and talking about hanging bangs, and it's just going to be, I don't know, I think it's a little more strategy, in-depth kind of strategy stuff, and I think it just kind of, it will help, let this all sink in, like if you can look back and remember what we talked about. But
for sure,
things are going to start clicking here more as we get into more of the strategy type of stuff.
For sure, man. All right. Well, let's wrap this one up. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.